got the big house.
I'm Johnny Bennett. Welcome to the July meeting of the Lens Neighborhood Livability Association. Thank you for all joining us. To show respect for our guest speakers, please silence your cell phones. Before we start, I'll bore you with a few announcements. We have our weekly West Rock cleanup every Saturday from 7 to 8 a.m. And this allows us to buy the supplies to do the things we do to run the neighborhood association without taking city grants. On the second Saturday of each month, we meet here at the church for Neighbor to Neighbor. And it's a great organization that goes out and helps the neighbors once a month with little projects around their house. And so that will be this Saturday. If you're interested, come check us out. Or if you have questions, Bob Field is one of the founders, and he can answer all your questions. On the third Sunday, we support the VFW Auxiliary. They have a great pancake breakfast. You could join us there if you wish. And then, I don't know what the big event is, but we're supposed to save the third Sunday, or save the date for their big VFW Auxiliary event on the 16th from noon to 3.
Freedom Festival.
Freedom Festival, okay. Didn't know. And all of this information can also be found on the website at Lens Neighborhood Livability Association.org. Before I introduce our guest speakers, DA Nathan Vasquez and Deputy District Attorney Kelly Burris, I'm sure one of the burning questions on everyone's mind is how can the DA's office affect livability issues in Lens, and what can we do as citizens to help them? So without further ado, all right, turn the meeting over to you folks. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really just appreciate the opportunity to come out and connect with you all and chat. And, this is meant to be interactive. So if you have questions, if there are things that come up you want to know about, just let me know. I'm here to serve you and to talk to you, and I want to answer your questions. So, first of all, thank you for having me back. I was here when I was running for office, and I really appreciate all of your good questions and your support. And a lot has changed since then. Now I'm the elected DA, and I'm so happy to be here to say, my office, and I really believe the city is ready to go in a new direction. And that's something that I have been saying from day one with the folks in my office, is that we are ready to really help this community be as vibrant and as healthy as it can be. And for that, I can tell you, even before I took office in that kind of crazy time period from May when I got elected till just this January when I took office, I went out to every police precinct and I talked to every officer, Portland Police, Gresham, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, Port of Portland, the PSU Police, even the Oregon Health and Science University Police. And I went and I told them one simple message, which was, we're here to be your partners. We're here to help this community get to a place that feels like it can have faith that its law enforcement community is working together for the best interest of everyone in the community. And that's been a consistent, solid message. And from that, I have been really just dedicated to making sure that we are out there working for you. And I went through, and I was very fortunate that I have with me one of my really strong deputy DAs, Kelly Burris, and she was very kind to put this together for us. My goal is to tell you, I'm going to start from the beginning, right? Tell you a little bit, what do we do at the prosecutor's office, right? To hear some of the initiatives and things that we're really working on and trying to accomplish for this community. So in the very basic sense, as prosecutors, our job is that we work with our fine officers, and we sometimes we're out in the field, but a lot of times we get cases in, we review police reports, and we make charging decisions. And then it's up to us to take that case forward, to make sure that a victim gets justice, that a case gets prosecuted. And we're in court fighting away, and when we get through, what happens is we are making recommendations about what sentence someone should get, and we're doing jury trials, all of those different parts. So, when we talk about how the office is structured, there's different parts, right? We have our misdemeanor unit, which handles all the kind of what we call smaller crimes, but I think are still very important. These are things like DUIs, minor assaults, theft crimes. It's something that I believe as a district attorney is important to our community. It needs to be prosecuted. We need to hold people accountable, even at that level. Now, we have in those divisions, so we do misdemeanor crimes, we also have our domestic violence unit and our juvenile unit. Now, our juvenile unit is located actually out at the Donald E. Long home, which is, Kelly, do you remember the?
It's 1401 Northeast 67th, but it's on 68th and Gleason.
That's why I brought her. So she's got all the good information.
Bell palsy?
Yep.
And so we also have our domestic violence unit, which is, it's very specialized. It handles that. We want to make sure that we're really, out there fighting for victims in that area. And so that's an important one as well. Now, in our other divisions of our office, you can see we have, in the district attorney's office, we have 95 attorneys. And I'll tell you, I've been extremely fortunate in that while, yes, I lost quite a few attorneys under the last administration, I was really lucky. I had great attorneys like DDA Burris who came back and said they wanted to work here. And I'm getting great attorneys coming in. And this is it. There's really a vibrancy to our office now with these 95 attorneys. And so, we have a very strong property crimes unit that do felony crimes like, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, like stolen motor vehicle cases, your theft cases, your bigger property crimes cases. It's one of the really positive areas that I'm going to talk about this evening. We're going to talk about the rates when we talk about stolen cars and how we've really seen a huge turnaround there. But the other divisions, one of my all-time favorites because I helped create it, the Strategic Prosecution Unit, which we're really looking at being innovative and how do we attack certain crimes. One of the big ones that I'm really pushing on right now is how do we get at these burglary rings that are out there, really plaguing businesses. I did a press conference today on this whole group of individuals that have been smashing their cars through businesses to go in and do these big thefts at night, and it's horrific, right? And it's just kind of frightening. Like, who takes a car and rams it through a business? And two, it's just it shuts down business. It hurts the tax bases. There's all different parts to that are really important to our community, and that's something that I'm dedicated to seeing us get under control. And more than anything, no one should be able to do that. They need to be held accountable. And that's really important to me. So when we talk about that, we have our other divisions as well as, we do our support enforcement, that's child support type stuff, the work that we do. Our Division 3 handles, these are kind of some of the larger crimes like burglaries, robberies, vehicular homicides, some gang and gun crimes. Unit D handles major person crimes, so major assaults. You'll see in some of our rape cases are handled there. I don't know if we have our multidisciplinary team also is in there as well, and they handle child abuse. So we have a lot of different units. Our investigative unit is robust and really works hard, and particularly with some of our specialized units like our organized retail theft unit and also with our stolen motor vehicle task force. Our investigators have been doing amazing things, and I'm happy to report, really in the first 6 months, this unit handled 2 major search warrants, and that was the first time in the history of the district attorney's office where we have personally gotten involved to that level where we had our investigators draft search warrants. We broke up a massive, it was a car chop shop, and then a huge fencing business that was, was taking in all the individuals that were out there doing all the organized theft and stealing, and then they were the fencing operation for all that stolen material. So we were able to break up those first 2 things just in the first 6 months that I've been in office. So I'm very happy. All right, Kelly, what do you got for me next?
We got just talking about strategic prosecution. Good stuff there.
This is really one of my favorite, aspects of talking about this job, and Kelly's in this particular unit, and it covers, that kind of when I talk about what I think is the future of prosecution and how we can do this job in a very efficient way, which I think uses tax dollars smartly and really gets at that really the most kind of damaging crimes, the people these are the most prolific offenders, we're going after them. And that's what this unit's all about. So the organized retail theft, we've become the leaders in the state on this, and I'm always looking to push and expand on this. This is when you think of those, when you see those horrific events where people are running in and grabbing armloads of stuff or pushing out, shopping carts full of stuff. We're going after them, and we're holding them accountable. And we're getting at that every day, and we're improving on that every day. There's a lot more work to be done in this area, and I'm really dedicated to seeing that really turn around. The Auto Theft Task Force, do we have numbers later?
We've got a slide on just some of the
we'll
impact
talk a
that's
little
made.
more about that, but the Auto Theft Task Force, this is the point where I always like to say, you have to give credit where credit's due. And the East Portland precinct officers, police officers, they are fantastic. I mean, they developed this program, their stolen motor vehicle program, which uses data, and it's one of those things when you go, they have a really great presentation. You should have them do it for you sometime, where they talk about how they identify stolen motor vehicles, and they are amazing. And I've been on some of these the missions, and they are grabbing guns, stolen property, stolen cars, and they're after it. And we've seen a huge turnaround. We'll talk about that a little bit. But then, our bias crimes is another one that we just had a very successful prosecution today. And we got a guilty verdict across the board on this one where, an individual was attacking churches and different things. And so we, I feel very proud of the work that we've done in that area. The bias crimes DAs that work in that field as well, they'll come out and always meet with folks in the community, and they're very, very active. So one to look for. TriMet, so another area that I'm really excited and proud of is that our DAs, we've been working really closely with TriMet, and I've been pushing them to say, look, yes, it's important that we look at keeping riders and our transit operators safe, but we need to also take a look at how is TriMet impacting the community around it, right? When we're talking about those stations and stops, are we seeing kind of dispersed effects on the community? And we need to be out there addressing those and really getting after that. And so that's where we've been pushing to really expand our efforts to make sure that, TriMet's a part of our community. But we need to make sure that it's also giving a safe passage for folks to ride on, but also being a good neighbor as well. And I'll say this, the folks at TriMet are dedicated to that. And when I talk with them, when I work with them, they want to see that. They have been huge partners. We just signed a 5-year contract with them to continue our work with them, and I'm really excited about what we have to bring with that. And again, I want to keep a very expansive view of that to make sure we're serving the community as a whole. The MAPS attorney program, this is both a great program and it's the one sad note I have for the evening. The great part is you have fine attorneys like this. And the MAPS attorneys, they're designed to be out in the community, to be in the police precincts, to work, to come to meetings like this, to really connect the community with what we do each and every day at the courthouse. And they do a great job, everything from, hey, there is this vacant house that's causing all these problems, and how can we work with the community to get it shut down, to, we go to also community events where we're like, okay, maybe we need to help people get rid of fines and fees so they can come back to be working and productive members of society. We do a whole host of stuff. The sad note is that one of our county commissioners, and it's all public record, is that in North Portland, Commissioner Singleton didn't really value that work, and so she cut one of our positions. And that's the one area in the budget. We'll talk a little bit about budget, I think, in here. And in that, she cut that position, so that'll be lost out of North Portland, sadly. I'll say that your county commissioner for your district, which I believe is Julia Brim Edwards.
Yes.
She has been a massive and strong partner and super supportive, as well as the Gresham County Commissioner Vincent Jones Six, and both of those two have been really strong, and I really have appreciated their support. As well as I was even pleasantly surprised that Commissioner Megan Moyer also was very supportive. So we've seen some real positives there, and in large part, because of that support, it really preserved the MAPS program that maintains where DA Burris will continue to work out here. So I'm happy about that. Okay, Auto Theft Task Force. So what that's comprised of is you have an investigator. So we have a DA investigator who works, and that investigator's job is just to go after those high volume individuals that are out stealing lots of cars, the chop shops, doing that. And I can tell you, they make hundreds of cases. It has been wildly impressive to see them work. We have a dedicated Deputy DA, Cody Linderholm, who, he's the cowboy boot wearing guy out at East Precinct who is just, I know the officers love working with him because he gets results. And we've seen those results, and it's a really dedicated partnership. It's using these very data-driven metrics. They pair up with a research scientist from OHSU, and it is phenomenal to see their work and how it all plays out. And what we've seen is this just really wildly impressive reduction. There was a time period where I'm pretty sure we were leading the nation in car thefts. I mean, when you look at the graph,
You were in the top 5 at least.
yes, it's this massive spike that goes up. And then you see, and you pair that on the date graph with when the Auto Theft Task Force came into being. And all of a sudden that spike goes down, down, down. And what we've seen is that that drop was so dramatic that earlier this year we saw one of the absolute lowest months in auto thefts that we've had in really decades. So it's been a huge turnaround, wildly successful. Again, I think my DA is fantastic. I think my investigator is amazing, but I do give most, if not all, the credit to the fine officers that do the work, because they are really dedicated and doing great stuff. So it's been a great partnership. All right, ooh, lots of data. So if you ever really want to dig into stuff, you're welcome to go to our website. It has all this stuff. What I want to highlight is that we are really focused on and I'm pushing folks as we come back. We're out of COVID. I always think COVID is something I never want to use as an excuse. That's behind us. We need to get to work. The officers are starting to get to be a little more staffed. I think they have received the message loud and clear that this DA is ready to partner with them, to work with them, and we're starting to see that result. So we're getting more and more cases. And my deputies they continue to, so we're seeing an increase in referrals. We're seeing, overall, we're issuing a massive amount of cases. I'm pushing all the time to issue as many cases as we can. I actually asked for a ton more funding for the DA's office to have investigators, because our investigators do a lot of that follow-up work that really helps us when we feel like we don't have enough evidence or information. They can go back out to the store or to a business and say, hey, do you have video? Can we get that? Can we put that case together? Because we're always trying to make as many of those cases as we can. All right.
And if I can just add, just because I do think that this is an impressive kind of addition to this, when I was pulling these numbers and talking to our data people earlier today, is that I believe what he said is that felony issuing percentage and the overall percentage is the highest that it has been since the turn of the century, so in the last 25 years. That we're also getting more cases. So we're doing productive work, and that is with productive policing that is referring those cases to our office.
Are they actually getting prosecuted?
That's what we're doing. Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the one. Always be very frank with folks, right? The one problem has been with the defense bar. They have been refusing to take cases. I've been very loud about that. You can probably see me, out there about this, and I'm not shy about it. I think they need to do more. The state legislature dumped in like several $100 million more into that system, and the problem got worse. Mm-hmm. And so I've been very clear of saying, I demand that they do better, because this isn't, as much as it gets reported out that it's a lack of attorneys, it's not actually true. And I'll be very clear with you. There are more defense attorneys now than there were than before, when we didn't have this crisis. Mm-hmm. There are far fewer defense attorneys. There's actually a few less criminal cases. So you have more attorneys, mm-hmm. a few less criminal cases, but somehow we're in this crisis. And it is truly, I've said it before, it's a work stoppage. I think it's based on an ideological belief that it's pushing them. And
Malicious compliance.
Well, yes, and I for one, I want to find solutions. And I went to the state legislature, the Washington County DA and I partnered, and we put forward a bill to kind of push them. Ultimately, some of the things we got amended into another bill, and so we're seeing some hopeful progress. The governor fired the executive director of that defense commission, so now we have a new one. That was one of the things we were pushing. So we're seeing progress, and I'm hopeful, but I'm not done pushing on it. Yes?
With the passage in 2024 of HB 4002 recriminalizing
Yep.
the drugs, do you see an uptick of things coming through your office due to that bill? I mean, is it making a difference? We see a lot of it in months.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge topic for us to discuss. Where we've seen an uptick is in the distribution of controlled substance, right? So when we talk about the individuals selling drugs, we've seen that one start to come up, which it needs to come up. We need to go after the people that are dealing drugs and get after them and make sure we can do all we can.
Either prosecute them or get them into recovery. There's so much
Sure.
money going into those recovery.
Well, and that's that next place, which is, what are we doing with deflection? That's a big question. And it's a big question on my mind because we're putting a lot of money in that. What are we getting in return? And, my concern is, I've always said, and I've been very clear, if they're going to do deflection, they need to actually be engaged in meaningful treatment. Right now, they go in, they get an assessment, and they go, okay, well, you got an assessment. I don't think that's good enough, and so I've been asking those hard questions to say we need to see some actual results. If these folks are struggling, we see them out there on the streets, they are struggling. They need to be supported out of this. It's not going to work ever with a situation where you just go simply, hey, we dropped you off at a center, we gave you an assessment, good luck. They need to actually be supported through that process to get them to a place where hopefully they can get to a clean and sober place to start making good decisions, and we can start pushing those treatment. All that money is going to treatment. We should be using it. And so I'm interested in results. And right now, I think there's a lot of questions about what results we're getting.
Do you have support with 3 of the 5 county commissioners hearing what you're saying?
Yes, I would say that I've been surprised by the commissioners that have started to really ask the questions. I know that Commissioner Moyer is asking those questions, Julie Brim-Edwards, and I know that Vincent Jones-Dixon are very concerned. Part of the issue, though, is so far it's been somewhat controlled by the county chair, and so that's been a concern. It's a question, and I know that the commissioners are starting to push on that. And I think as we go forward, I've tried to be, take a reasonable approach, which is, okay, let's see how this works out. I've pushed back in certain areas, but let's see. Let's watch the data. Let's see how it's going. And I always caution people, look closely at that data that comes out, right? 33% of people are walking out the door. 66% are engaging. But what does engaging mean? So ask those questions. Know what that means. And then they say, I think it's like 20-ish, 22-ish, somewhere in there percent are success. Well, what does success mean? And those are the questions you want to make sure that you're asking to make sure that when we're looking at, are we getting the result that we want? For me, success, my definition is that someone, again, has in some way meaningfully engaged. It doesn't mean that, I've worked in this job for 25 years. I've been around folks that have been struggling with substance abuse disorder and addiction for a long time. And there's never a magic, pill, and there's not a one solution fits all. There's a lot of different paths to treatment, but at the same time, it takes sustained effort and really people actually engaging in those treatment efforts, whichever route they take.
The deflection center, originally when they set that up, you couldn't have a criminal history or you couldn't have it charged. Is that still in place?
Well, the way it works is you can have a criminal history.
Okay.
You can't have other criminal charges. So in other words, if you're out If you're a felon and you're arrested with a gun and you have drugs on you, you're not going to go into deflection.
Okay.
So that I've been very clear that that's not going to be acceptable at all. So, where they're trying to expand is like, well, what if it's a disorderly conduct? And it's like, well, those are ones we can look at least. But I want to start seeing some results if we're going to actually do something like that. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
One of the gals that I work with in Carol and I mentor actually at the same place together, but one of the gals that went through a drug treatment program and graduated has been doing good, but not her husband, but her ex, the father of her kids, has done horrible things, including molesting the children.
Sorry to hear that.
And breaking into their house. But he is in one of those deflection centers, and all of the case to protect her and the kids has been put on hold while he's getting help. But he has gone out 3 times. She has to go from hiding to hiding to hiding because he finds her and threatens to kill her, tries coming through wherever she's staying. She's in a protective situation, but he knows where she is. She's now gone over to Beaverton. I don't get that because he is in a situation he's not supposed to be able to be out committing crimes, and yet what he's done is on hold while he gets deflected or whatever.
I don't know what program he's in, and I can tell you that I'm never going to stand for someone putting something on pause, particularly when it's abusing a child, right? So if someone's out abusing a child, in my office, they will be prosecuted. We just need the information. So, it sounds like a very difficult domestic violence situation. Those are tough. They are. They're emotional. They're really hard to work through. We have a dedicated team that'd be happy to take those on. That's a tough one. And so, my heart goes out to her and her kids, though, for sure. Yeah.
But that's possible? I mean, obviously it is. They can go...
No, I'll say this.
What I'm trying to figure out is how is he still doing it?
If there's a case that we can prosecute and charge, it's not going to be put on hold because he's going through the deflection process or something treatment. So that's not, that there's not a mechanism to like pause, particularly a violent crime or a crime of child abuse. We're going to go after those, and those are going to take what we call the kind of the primary approach on them. So, but if we can get the information, we will take it. All right. Okay. Let's see. So some other kind of positive news is that I'll always start here and say, when we talk about violent crimes and shootings, each one of them, each loss of life is terrible, it's tragic, it's sad. And so when I talk about things getting better, it's never to in any way like excuse or say that it's okay that we lost a life over here. The loss of one life is too many. However, I will say we have started to see some really positive results. In 2022, Portland was skyrocketing. We were out of step with the rest of the nation in the sense that the rest of the nation also had a big spike, but then theirs started to come down pretty rapidly. Portland didn't. We lagged really far behind. And I'll tell you, we had some really dedicated efforts by what we call our FIT team. That's our Focused Intervention Team by Portland Police. They do a great job of going after those individuals that are really engaged in kind of violent shootings and crimes. If you're ever interested in being involved, there's what we call the FIT COG. That's the Focused Intervention Team Community Group, the advisory group. And so they work on these, and we have seen kind of a steady downward trend in the number of shootings, also the number of homicides. I think that maybe is next up. So when we look at these time periods, what we're seeing is, we're at 50%. So throughout my career, it's one of the things I did a lot of was I dealt with homicides, prosecuted, stood up for the victims' families. And we used to have, and I want you to keep an eye on this time period, right? That's January through May. It used to be that was all, we wouldn't have more than 30 homicides a year. And really, when we talk about when most of the homicides happen in Portland, I think for those of us who've been long-term residents, it's typically during the summer months, right? Mm-hmm. So, we had in 2022 in particular, I think we were up to about 100 homicides. So it was horrible. I don't sugarcoat it, it was horrible. And we're seeing a dramatic improvement. We're a long ways from where I want to be, but we're making progress. And it's something that I know that Portland Police, Gresham, and that my office is dedicated to. We're working, and I always think that the solution is yes, law enforcement needs to get out there and get after this, but also it's a community-driven approach, right? So we're working with all different types of groups out there because, again, I think this is a type of problem that needs a whole community's approach and solution. So we're actively working on it and we're seeing good results. So I feel very positive about it, but I still am the one that says I'm not satisfied. I want to see better. Yes, sir.
Forgive the nitpicker.
Nope.
Is there an error on the date of the January 24 through May 25?
Oh, yes, that is an error. I apologize. That's a typo. Yes. Good catch.
Good catch,
yes.
sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the same time period, so we're looking at that the first 5 months. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And those are also significantly down and these are from the Portland Police. They have publicly available dashboards with data on them, which are great. And so they're also up there on like the data chart and smaller print is, where we were at for this same time period with the 3 years prior to 2024 average, which was even higher. So.
And I always tell folks, when we put up these tiny little numbers and it's hard to see,
Yeah.
please go to the website and check them. So you have both the Multnomah County DA's office, we have data on our website, but also Portland Police has their own data website as well.
And I'm happy to send a link to Char. I can send you the links to these dashboards because
I looked at 'em, yeah.
because that stolen car, there's
Uh-huh.
the dashboard where we kind of pulled the data for the auto theft task
Yeah.
force. It's great, and it breaks it down by month, and it's got a lot of excellent data on it also.
This is significant. What do you guys attribute that to besides Nathan being the new DA?
Well, I appreciate that, but I would never ever take all credit. So I do attribute a lot of it to our FIT team. They have been FIT team are officers that are really out there. They are a very dedicated, specialized group. So yes, I attribute a lot to that. We've also had a lot of good community effort. I mean, there's been a ton, both, and I always like to give credit where credit's due. The mayor's, the Office of Youth Violence Prevention, it's a long acronym, they have been very active. We're working out, they're trying to get out there and work with kids. We're seeing a hard spike right now in juvenile or youth gun violence, and so those groups are out there. It's also, and I don't know, Ceasefire. Ceasefire has been extremely active, and Ceasefire is a group that again, they're out there working with at-risk youth and at-risk individuals, and they're saying, hey, what can we do to get you off this track? And so I would say it's truly a combined effort. Yes, across the nation we've seen the drop. Hopefully now we're seeing Portland start to catch up with the rest of the nation and get us back on track. So it's that, I think it's really having the FIT team really operating at full capacity. It's having a different approach from overall law enforcement, which is, hey, we're here to hold people accountable. Things like the stolen motor vehicles, that has a huge impact. Because if you think about it, instead of someone running around with a stolen motor vehicle and a gun that they shouldn't have, they're now being stopped. They're being arrested. Those guns are being pulled off the street. So those are all things that play into this. And it is always going to be, in my opinion, a combined effort with community, with law enforcement, working together to try to get to a better place.
And how do we help best with that? Because there's quite a few gunshots that we hear
Yes,
around here.
sure.
A lot. I mean, one night it sounded like a, what do you call the automatic thing?
Yeah.
I'm not a gun person, but there must have been 65 shots. And we called the police and they were like, well, where do you think it's coming from? Well, I hope it's not at my house. I don't know, but it's close. And I don't know, it never showed up on a police report that somebody was sent out or anything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, a couple of things. One is report, just like you're doing. And just because you may not see it right away. I mean, I'll tell you, these officers, they stay on this. So they collect up the shell casings, they put them in a system called NIBIN, and it kind of categorizes them, and then they wait for maybe another one, and they kind of link things together. And so they're always working on that. So it's so important to report. Yes, be involved, right? I mean, it's working with groups like this, and it's the more that we can do to make our community safe, the more that we can do to kind of be that healthy presence in the community. I think the less opportunity there is for individuals that would do violence to be involved. There are lots of other layers and solutions out there, and I'm always a proponent of, hey, I'm never going to say there's just one solution. We should look at them all and press as much as we can the ones that we see that actually have some results.
I heard there were issues down at the Multnomah County Jail, like water pipes broken or...
It's an old building.
Okay.
It is. I mean, I'll tell you, it's about 20 plus years past its lifespan. So that's going to be something that's going to have to be addressed.
This MCDC or Inverness?
MCDC, although Inverness is very old too. But it's more pronounced at MCDC because you have this building, and when one floor floods, it floods lots of floors. So it has been an issue that I'll tell you, we have an office, it's on like the second or third floor, and we get flooded regularly, and it's not pleasant. So it's an area of great concern. I'll just say that that's going to be something that Multnomah County is going to have to address. My concern is that they're going to wait until it gets unbearable, but yes.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of genuine questions. I have paid attention to what's going on for a number of years just by looking at TV and listening to the radio, nothing deep. And it was years before I understood that the homeless, quote, crisis is not really a homeless issue, it's a drug addiction issue. And that does not come across in the media. We have people tearing up the neighborhood that are having a mental crisis. Well, my best guess is 99% of those had a bad trip on some stupid drug. But the TV never tells us that. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there's something can be done to get these people to start telling us the whole story.
If there was a way to control the media.
Well, just pestering them a little bit, maybe.
Well, I mean, and certainly I hear you, and the issues around substance abuse disorder and mental health are massive in our community, and I'm always pushing and trying to say, how can we better serve? Because I want to serve in a way that gives us long-term health. That's the key.
And the question that I get hit with when I say this to somebody about the drug issue and homeless, they say, well, yeah, if you're on the street for a few years, you're going to turn to drugs too, and that doesn't say, that's not necessarily why they became homeless. Do you have any insight into that? How many people were drug addicts before they got on the streets?
I couldn't give you a specific number. Does it happen? Yeah, it will happen. But this is a situation where we, I think, went through this experiment that we called Measure 110, and I don't think it helped our community, right? I mean, I think it did us rough, right? And we suffered, and we saw that result. And so, when we talk about how often it occurs, I'll tell you that our criminal numbers are about 30% involve individuals that are experiencing, some form of housing issues, right? So that's when we talk about when you want to get to numbers. Now, how many of that are, involving a substance, it's upwards of over 60% when we're talking about some sort of substance abuse issue. These are massive issues that we're dealing with. So.
You were talking about your coordination with the different, parts of the city. Lentz is right on the edge of Multnomah County and Happy Valley, Clackamas County, and a lot of the homeless, a lot of the criminal element just are literally on that border. You'll see the streets that on one side are Clackamas County and the other side's Multnomah, and they border it. And they know it. And so we see a lot of that. My question is, do you work with Clackamas County on a lot of issues that come up in these areas where they border?
Yeah, so the district attorney there is John Wentworth, and he and I and Kevin Barton for Washington County, because I'm always looking at this what we call the tri-county area. We work together regularly, and we're trying to address some of these issues. But a lot of sadly, what you're talking about is Multnomah County has a particular perspective. It's not necessarily the DA's office, but the county does. And I don't know if you saw the article that was out this week, but in Multnomah County, we spent in 1 year $501 million on homeless issues, just in Multnomah County, 1 year. So I mean, this county has a particular approach. I'm hopeful that the mayor, who is, he's very focused on this issue. I'm hopeful that we'll see some progress in this. But I think it's going to take the county and the city coming together to really kind of get at it. I don't say it's a byproduct, but a reality in my world is that yes, it impacts crime. It impacts what we deal with, for sure.
So the last I heard, we were doing a housing first, then treat the addiction method of solving the drug problem. Do you have any data on how successful that's been? Because I've heard some people attack that, and that you really need to leave them on the street where they get more and more motivated to get off drugs instead of give them a comfy place to stay until, in my cynical view, they die of an overdose.
Yeah, that's a tough area. I'll say that's one that's for our Multnomah County Health Department would be the ones that keep that data and have that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to get you more the what crimes we got coming in the door. So, all right, where were we here? We're getting close here.
I was going to say the last
question?
slide that I apparently didn't actually make the final draft is just going to be moving forward with the budget and what are your plans for the office.
Last couple things, and then I'll of course answer any questions you have. But we just got done with our budget season, and what we saw was I'll be again very blunt. The way that Multnomah County's budget works is pretty simple. The chair puts out a budget, and that's about 90% of the budget. I mean, maybe 95 actually. So the chair really dominates that. Now the commissioners can come in and tweak it and do some little changes here and there. But I'll say that when the budget came out, I was shocked and not happy, and I made that known because I believe that the community wants to see more public safety. They want to see that push, and I did not believe that the budget reflected that. And so we worked hard, and we went from having what I would consider massive cuts. In fact, we were scheduled all along to have no cuts once we got there, and then right at the last minute, Commissioner Singleton came in and cut some money from us. And so, not happy about that, but I am happy to say the DA's office, the way our budget is, we're going to have enough to really go after crime and do some of the stuff I want. Yes, there's a lot more that I want to do and a lot more budget that I put forward that wasn't approved, but there's always next year. So I'm going to push for that. Yes, sir.
Well, I believe the police are doing a good job. I think DA's office is doing a good job.
So thank you.
That's 2 out of 3. You haven't talked about the third leg on the stool. I don't know if it's the judge's office that controls who is let in out of jail through the matrix system. which isn't a movie, I don't think. But I'm amazed at reporting on crime as well as other things. When I look up the record, the adult person in custody record, I can't call them an inmate, that these people will be released on their own recognizance that were caught having a gun. They were caught stabbing someone. I'm not killing them, just cutting them up a little bit. They were caught in a major crime, and they're out in 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. And then the other part of that is, I mean, that's the instant part, but it's in the sentencing.
The way I look at this is that there's 32 judges in our county. Is that about right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's right in that number. But if I'm off on a few there, I apologize. But what happens though is, with that large amount, I can tell you, I don't know if I've ever seen a really contested judges race. They're elected, and if you're unhappy with how a judge is performing, certainly that's an issue and an area to take up. I've been
But with all due respect, it's a great system.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Well, a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah.
But judges are not allowed to state positions. You can't know anything about them, and virtually all of them are running are incumbents.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people retire and then have a new judge put in their place by political people, not by legal people.
Yeah.
So yes, they are elected, and that's why I vote for a lot of comic characters. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to elect Superman. I'll elect Mickey Mouse for a judge.
Most 90% of what you're saying is very accurate. I'll say that we do have some really, really good judges that I really think do a great job, and then we have some others that maybe I don't agree with as much.
Wasn't there one you weren't going to?
That's true. There was one that we call that affidaviting, and I've been, like I said, I came into this office to serve the public, and it's not to serve a small group of folks or this or that. And so I've been loud when I need to be loud, and judges don't like being affidavitted, but I've tried to send a clear message that I demand that fair treatment for the victims, fair treatment for the community. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And it's, I'm not asking for them to be a state judge or overly harsh on sentencing. I just want fair. That's all. That's my key.
Equity.
Just for me, it's a matter of their job is to come in to apply the law evenly and make decisions that I believe are fair to all involved. And that doesn't mean, hey, you need to find everyone guilty, and it certainly doesn't mean you need to find everyone not guilty, right? So it's about making the right decisions.
So many times Portland is so concerned about the underdog or the person who doesn't have as much, however they got there, whether they were born into it and never got out of it or whatever. But because of that, many times we find that it's the underdog that commits the crime, and then they get let back out, but never put back into a place where then they can exceed. They still come out.
Yeah. And I hear you. And my focus is to make sure that the voices, when we talk about underdogs, the victims, is to focus on victims and supporting victims in this, the community.
Which we want to.
Yes.
It's just we want them to.
And the other part in that is that I've always said it's okay to be compassionate. In fact, it's wonderful, and we should be doing that as a community. Portland is, I think, will never ever be accused of not being compassionate, right? But I've also said it's okay to hold people accountable as well, right? And so let's have both, right? The idea is, let's make sure we're being compassionate, but let's hold people accountable and say, okay, if people made a mistake, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but we're going to hold them accountable. Maybe expect that they get through treatment. Maybe expect that they do pay restitution, right? And so those things are not exclusive. No. So let's continue to be a compassionate community that really believes in trying to get folks to a healthy place But let's do that, the idea of, hey, it's okay to hold people accountable, to support them along the way and push.
Right.
So,
Okay. I'm Gary Sargent. I've been a business owner here in Lentz since the 1980s.
yes, sir.
You're a breath of fresh air, and thank you for taking your valuable time to come out here to our community. I've got 5 cases here dating back to 2019.
Okay.
I know you're the new sheriff in town, and I look at it that way. No, I really do. I've got restitution that's supposed to have been paid to me to date from 5 individuals. I've only received $100.
Okay.
I'm out almost $100,000.
No,
I
sorry.
had a crash and grab about 2 months ago, cost me $64,000 damage to my building, on and on and on. Now, we talk about judges, okay? Had a case about 3 years ago. The district attorney, assistant district attorney came to me and she says, well, we have a very sophisticated alarm system. So we see the people, when the police hear a 911 call and our address, they love it. And I mean this in a weird way, but they know they're going to catch somebody. Okay? They know they're going to catch this individual because I'm watching them on my cameras. Okay? I'm talking to the 911 officer. So they're excited. I mean, usually a police officer shows up after the crime's committed. Oh, your car was broke into. Gee, too bad. Now they're on an adrenaline rush, and they're risking their lives coming to my dealership to arrest somebody. They have chased individuals over storage containers. I mean, on and on and on, and risk their lives. And God bless them. They do a good job. But then they get let down because the DA would not prosecute. Your predecessor would not prosecute. We filed charges against all 5 of these individuals. Silence. One of them, though, that did about $62,000 worth of damage, tried to drive through the inside of my building. They arrested him. And that was during the riots downtown Portland 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. Okay. So we had the guy caught in our building at gunpoint, my son and I, and we had the officers finally were able to respond because they were downtown.
Sure.
Finally responded. We arrest the individual, and so the district or assistant DA says, this individual is high on drugs, and we have this diversion program that we want to put him into. And I said, okay. And they said his family's involved and they want to get him rehabbed and all that kind of stuff. Okay? And he promises to pay you restitution. He's the individual I've got $100 from. Okay? So I said, okay, so where's the hammer?
Yep.
She says, what do you mean the hammer? I said, okay, you want him to be your poster child for this diversion program. Well, we don't look at it like that. And I said, well, that's what you're asking me to do, is to, as a victim, you want my blessing on letting him go through this program. I said, what happens if he fails the program? Well, he'll be on probation. And if he fails, then we'll go back and talk to the judge. Okay. Well, he went through the program. A month out of the program, he broke into another house and was arrested. And so he went before a judge, and his attorney argued that, he was hit in the head when he was a child, and he's got all these issues. And the judge, not even opening the file, knowing that if he failed any of this stuff, it was 5 years is what we had agreed to in the plea bargain, that he would go to prison for 5 years if he failed the probation. Okay. So I'll wrap it up. But the judge didn't even look at the file. We're talking about judges. Didn't even look at that there was 5 years that he was accountable for. So the judge realizes, well, maybe it's a good thing we'll send him back through this diversion program a second time. So they tell him that he's got a self-arrive, self-report, whatever it
Turn
is.
themselves in, yeah.
Yeah, turn himself in, day before Christmas. Okay, well, he no-shows. So they put a warrant out for his arrest. Now, I get a notice that he's warrant out for his arrest. So I call the assistant DA and I said, hey, what's going on? And she tells me the story. I said, he should be in jail right now, right? So we're going to have they're out looking for him. They find him. They said he's going to have an arraignment. So now we have to watch it on TV, the arraignment, and I told the DA, assistant DA, I want to talk to the judge. Okay. So the judge, I tuned in early enough. This judge is talking to these other criminals that are before my will. Do you promise not to do this again? Talking like a 2-year-old, like they're talking to 2-year-olds. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I tell my office manager, I said, this judge is going to let this guy out, you know. So as luck would have it, the assistant DA tells the judge, listen, I want to talk to the judge. So I'm on the phone and we're talking. And I tell the judge, I said, Your Honor, I said, I just don't understand why we're even here. He says, well, what do you mean, Mr. Sergeant? I said, well, he's supposed to be in prison. Well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I noticed you haven't even opened the file on him yet. And I said, the deal that we made was that if he failed probation, that he'd go to prison for 5 years. That was the deal. All of a sudden, I see the judge open the file up on TV, and he starts reading. And I said, well, I can tell you, I know his arrest record. It's probation, 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 probation. And the judge says, wow, okay. So I won't say the guy's name. He says, so what do you have to say for yourself? He says, well, Your Honor, I promise that I found God, and I promise never to break into another house, and promised if you send me back to a drug rehab again, he says I'll commit, I'll get it all handled and everything. And goes on about this long speech and everything, and finally the judge, I'm watching him, he's continually reading this guy's rap sheet. And so he says, sir, the judge says, sir, I've got, if everything that you're telling me right now is true and you're going to practice it, I've got the perfect place for you to practice it. Oregon State Penitentiary. Sent him for 5 years. But my point being is that these cases, and I want to give you copies of them, one of them was 5 years old from 2019. I got a subpoena and canceled part of my vacation for the 27th of May to show up. A day before that, I get a call and they said, hey, it's the trial's canceled. Now that's been 5 years sitting at the DA's office. Now that's not your fault. You're the new sheriff. And God bless you, because I think you are gonna have 2 6-shooters on your side. So at least that's the hope. Because anyway, so I've got these cases that I'd like to have you review, or have your staff review them, and see where these individuals are and why I haven't received any restitution.
Well, I can tell you, first and foremost, the answer is absolutely yes. I'll take those and we're gonna get you answers. Okay? That's where we start. The next thing is, you're right. These issues where you're seeing people getting cycled in and out, I'm tired of it too. And I'm tired of the delays and the excuses, and it's just time to get to business and work these cases through and hold people accountable. So, all I can say is, I lived through that time, and I got to see it from the inside of the system, and I got to the point where I said, I can't be a part of that system anymore, and that's why I ran, and that's why I came here, is to say, I'm here dedicated to do something better and different for this community. It's to prosecute cases, to do it in a timely manner, to hold people accountable. So that's where we are. I'm happy to take your file and go through it.
Thank you.
All right? How are we doing on time?
Good time.
Okay, good. More time for questions.
Yeah.
Good, I got cars too.
A question about the dumping and the cars that have been burned and all up on that, and the gunfire.
It was
that-
clear tonight. There was one guy down there passed out on the grass.
Yeah.
And another car parked.
Yeah, and 3 cars burned, and then there was that trailer burned, and the trees had been burned. And why don't we put cameras out there, or police, you know, like the blue light special
We've
thing?
tried that for years. We wanted, the city would not pay for them because they said, no one will monitor them. And I said, we'll
I'll monitor them.
I know
You
that's
bet.
what
We
they said.
volunteered and they turned us down.
Well, they gotta do something because we're fire season, and every
Yeah.
time I drive down there, there was another new burnt area. It is serious.
That is a wildlife area through there.
Well, it's one of those areas, you know, certainly I believe we're still in East Precinct in this area, so
Yes.
we should be able to talk with our NERT officers and at least see if we can get some. And
is
they're spread thin because there's a lot, sadly, I hear you, and is that the issue they're dealing with is there's about 15 other camps like that.
Yeah.
It's probably a low number. So,
With the burning cars and the shooting,
Mhm.
because
I know.
at Knapp and 100th, there was the shooting.
Yeah.
And, you know,
continue to report. I'll say this. It is the old squeaky wheel gets greasing. I continue to report.
but what can we do as a community? I'm not kidding. If there was a camera there, can we go put out cameras?
I mean,
We put up fake cameras and that actually stopped them for a while. They just were fake cameras with a little blinky light.
Yeah.
We did, they're probably still down there somewhere, but they started knocking them off the pole.
We just moved in the area in March, and we never would have bought our house had we seen that. But the week
didn't tell you?
No, yeah, that's what I said. I want to sue him.
sir, go ahead.
This guy's fine, or long rap sheet demonstrates another approach. We are giving these guys bail. Why don't we not give bail to anybody with a rap sheet more than, I don't know, maybe that or that long? Hey, you've been in jail 3 or 4 times, or you've been arrested 4 or 5 times, convicted. So we're going to assume that you're probably, maybe guilty this time, and you can rot in jail until your trial.
What we have been doing is we're doing a thing called preventative detention, and so that is where we're going and we're seeking to have people held. Essentially, they're held without bail. We've been doing that for people that have a record. The issue is that that's limited to people that are charged with a violent crime. I think there's opportunity to work out, exactly what you're talking about. The individuals that are kind of cycling in and out, in and out. There's a host of issues and challenges, opportunities, as I like to say. Lots of opportunities.
Ron,
So,
yeah.
yeah. Other questions? Carrie, another one?
Yeah, I don't know what input, and it might be out of your wheelhouse, but we're talking about homeless around here, and we have, where we're at in the business district down over the hill here, we have semis delivering freight to the stores, to the restaurants, to our dealership, and we had a 5th wheel all of a sudden show up. Okay, all of a sudden show up. And so I went over and I talked to the individual, and he says, well, there's no parking signs here. I said, but you don't understand, this is, where we receive freight and employees park here and everything. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go call the 311. Okay, call 311. They said, well, you need to call the non-emergency number. I'm on hold for 48, I timed it, 48 minutes. And, that's unacceptable. And I don't know if, I would rather have some of that money from the homeless budget to put towards that. And on the homeless, when is it we're going to start tough love? These people don't want the help. They don't want the housing. They want to live on the street and take their drugs. Now, there used to be, when my parents were younger, There was, where McMinimum's was, there was a workhouse where they would have to go work if they were farmhouse, right? They would, these people that were out of work or homeless or whatever, they got a meal and whatever. When is it we're going to get tough love? And that's what got those people, those individuals, to be now productive citizens. But now we've got drugs. Back then, I don't know what there was, heroin maybe, but tough love. And it starts with saying, you know what, you can't live here, and we're gonna send you to rehab, and you're gonna get a place to live, and you're gonna get off the street.
Well, there is one problem there, and it was voted in, unfortunately. That would be considered slave labor now. Yeah.
Yes,
we
it
can't
would.
do that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying.
No, I'm not talking about putting them to work.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, look, I don't want to go to your new housing thing or anything like that. Okay, well, guess what? There's a law. It's called vagrancy. You're a vagrant. You cannot set up your tent. I don't care what Multnomah County says, because your tent is here. You're now a citizen of Multnomah County.
Yeah.
That's not true. You're not a taxpayer.
Yeah.
That is not true.
Well, when we talk about these issues, I think it's important, you remember, and this is where I like to redirect folks, is to say, okay, this comes down to how the community decides to put its money to use. And that occurs through the county and it occurs through the city. And I'll tell you, a lot of what these issues you're talking about are county-focused issues, right? And so, it is, when we look at the budget, the Office of the Department of Homeless Services got about $300 million this year from Multnomah County. So, our Homeless Service Act. So, that is where, when we talk about these issues, I would focus you. When we look at your county commissioners, you have a solid one. You have elections coming up. I would strongly encourage you, if you're feeling frustrated with your county, get out there and push hard on those elections.
It's my understanding that the chair holds the purse.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
No matter what the commissioners say, she has the final say.
To a degree. So here's you're right, and this is where I was talking about the budget. The chair right now is the individual that puts out the budget, and that, from what I've seen year after year, is about 95% of the budget. Now, if you have 3 other commissioners who say, nope, I don't like that, I want to change it, as long as you have 3 that are, I would say, strong-minded enough to say, I want to make major changes, they could change the entire budget. I mean, they could. But here's what, if you ever see the Multnomah County budget, it looks like 3 telephone books. I mean, it's massive. And so you have to have the type of effort when we're talking about $300 million in the homeless services, 300 plus in the health department, and to get down into that granular level. I think it's a lot to expect 3 people to come together, all aligned in one mission. I think your better effort is, focus on the county chair and decide, whether you think the current county chair is the person you want, or if you want someone different. Because guess what? Next year's the election.
Yes.
So you get to decide. That's up to you.
So the thing that's concerning is that we have all this money being spent on, talk about matrix. And I am very impressed with what you put together tonight to show us those figures. Thank you. So that's important, and I know it's out of your wheelhouse, but when we start talking about these millions of dollars being spent on the homeless, where are we getting the results? Now I've seen, what is the results? And those are strong questions that I would like to know. Where do I start asking those questions? Because what I see is these nonprofits. Let's start a nonprofit. Okay, well we're gonna go out and we're gonna tell people where they can go get help.
Gary, let me. Yeah. I'll tell you what happens. This is what happens. Because I got a front row seat to this. So here's what happens. The budget comes up, and the county commissioners, they start thinking about, okay, where are we going to put this money, right? And the nonprofits and the folks that are getting the money, they're showing up at these meetings in droves, right? And they're like, hey, there's 30 slots here for public comment. They've got 28 of them.
So disgusting.
So my point in that is, when we, as a community or individual, if we disagree, you have to find the entry points, and the entry points are every Thursday at the county board. They have public comment, and the board meets every Thursday. You have your election next year, and you have your budget process, which comes up. It ends in June, and it begins in earnest in April. Now, the departments like myself, I'm putting my budget together in December, which is, trust me, not a pleasant process. But what happens is in April, the chair is going to put out her budget. And you have that window from April to June where public comment and opportunity. And I always tell people, don't wait. Get out there way ahead of April because, I'll say that what I see, and each of us have our own lens we view with media and the way we get media these days, right? But what I see and hear in the community is a lot of dissatisfaction about the way in which our community is spending, a lot of tax money that's coming in. And exactly what you're talking about is, we're spending this money, what are the results? Mm-hmm. And so that's where it's important to, make sure we find those entry points and demand the results. I think as a society and community, we are very generous. We've decided as a community, whether or not we all agree, that we have this tax, right? The homeless service tax. And that's a lot of money. And the question is, I would hope that if we're doing this, we're doing it because we believe that that's going to help people overcome whatever life issues have brought them to be homeless and get them into a better place. That's the hope. And so we should demand those results.
We see also in this area, and to comment on what you just said, we do have people that come into the meetings and we share, and then we find out they just do the opposite. So it's so frustrating because you can't get in there to testify. So that's a frustration we have for Lentz. But we also see a lot of sex trafficking in this area, and I'm just wondering, have you seen a decrease or is there an uptick? Are you involved with those type of crimes?
Yes. So, sorry.
And what's, is there a task force that's dedicated to that?
Yes, so we have our human trafficking deputies, and we have two currently. I'll tell you, J.R. Yujafuza, who heads up our strategic prosecution. He is really, and sadly it's because Portland, it's been an issue, he's really the national expert on how we combat that. And so, he is dedicated to it. I know Portland Police is still, I would say we have seen an uptick. It's just...
we see it here.
Yeah.
I see it every day.
So,
It's how they pay for their drugs.
And it's where we need to get back to, because it's one of those areas where, we see the individuals that are involved, the victims they're in such a horrible state that, it breaks my heart. And so I'm always pushing to see, can we do more in that area? It's one of a host of challenges that we have.
I think it's a natural kind of point of connection, right? We were just talking about the homelessness issue, and now we're talking about human trafficking. And I'm curious about if you could speak to if there's any correlation between the unsanctioned campers and RVs and the uptick in human trafficking. Is there a relationship there? Because sometimes I know we see it in our communities that there's activity around those. So
yeah,
I've seen it.
The simple, direct answer is yes. Yeah. I mean, it's sadly across the board. We've seen where that impacts our different crime types, and certainly, I would love if Mayor Wilson's plan came to fruition and he ended unsanctioned homelessness, and even if he doesn't, I appreciate how earnest he is and how much I'm hopeful that maybe he can help move the needle. Yes, I think all of us might come in and say the plan should be here, there, or this different. I am at least encouraged that he is dedicated to this effort, because I believe that rise has impacted all areas of crime that we've seen. I can tell you it certainly impacts the homicide rate and gun violence rate, for sure.
I see women that stagger around these streets
I
early
do
in the
too,
morning,
yeah.
and it's the saddest thing ever. And by the time you call 211 or you see them wandering,
Yeah.
they've disappeared, and it's disheartening. You know, our children see it. We can't really.
Don't stop calling. Keep trying. 'Cause
Yeah.
I always say, you know, maybe you'll see 100 examples, but if you make a difference in that one life, it matters. So keep calling.
And I would say to you that we have to keep reporting. It seems like it's just.
Yeah, my
we're beating our
son,
heads against the wall,
my
but
son called.
you have to keep reporting. So.
My son called about somebody that was messing around out in front of our house, and 911 said, "So what do you want me to do about it?" My son's 31 and he wanted to tell them what they should do.
Sure.
But thank God he didn't. But he said, "Well, what do you mean? Well, is he murdering somebody or breaking into your house, or what's he doing that makes you feel in danger?" And my son, of course, my husband was at work, and my son is a really good guy, and he's thinking, "Well, I want to protect my mom." And so, literally, he was told, "Don't bother us with stuff like that." Literally, it's happened twice. And my son didn't know if they were just loitering around or leaving or wanting to go through trash cans or whatever. But you know, it's a one step away from jumping the fence or breaking a window. And he's called twice and they chastised him.
I hear you. However, we got to make sure that it's about directing your calls to match up. So 911 is always going to be looking at life safety, right? That's their first question, life safety. And then, yes, if there are certain property crimes and things that they will get involved in, but right now, you know, we're at a tidal wave crescendo, and that's our focus. You know, there are lots of other options that we've heard. You know, 311.
311.
So I would look at what the different options are for reporting, and you know, I know it may be hard, but you know, if folks are just out walking the street, it's not crime.
No, but I mean going through the trash can, and even that, once you put your trash can out on the street, it's no longer your property.
Right.
So you can go out and say, "Please don't go through my trash can."
Yeah.
Well, it's not your stuff. You put it out here. Well, you're right. Okay, just go through it.
I know that's annoying, but it's, you know,
Just tell them to put it back. When
Yeah.
they take it out.
Yeah.
That's the problem, they know.
My daughter-in-law, the guy just threw this stuff.
Okay, go back to the 211, 311. I try to get out there and clean, try to cut the bush. It's all over the one street. They clean up, they gone. 3 weeks later, they come back and then mess it again. And my people try to clean and get tired of it. I guess first I want to say thank you for your service.
Yes.
Like he said, you come in on board, welcome again.
Yes.
I don't know this question to come to you, but I just want to bring it up. When we have a sign say 2-hour parking, and they park there over 3 months,
yeah.
what are those people, the one who get the ticket, to go out there? They didn't go to here, they go somewhere else. They give other people that working and get the ticket.
I find
But
that
not these
extremely
people.
frustrating. I hear you.
That is
It
so
happens downtown as well, and
Yeah, I know you put in downtown, but why don't you put over here too?
So Mike Krebs, Paul Mike Krebs,
I'm not
City of
putting you, I
Portland,
just question.
directs the parking, and so you can talk with them, because it is.
I want to get Nathan out of here by 8:30. Rosemary, do you have a question, or Gary, do you guys have any comments? I just want to thank you for running. Thank you for winning. Thank you. Thank you for fighting for us. TriMet, the budget with the county, with the governor for these defense attorneys. Just thank you.
I appreciate that.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all being involved and being out there you're out there. I recognize that the way that we progress as a community, it's not just to say, hey, what are the police doing? What are the DA's office doing? Yes, that's important, but it's really about how we all come together as a community to really tackle these challenges. And so I appreciate you all being involved and caring to come out. And I know that this is probably just a fraction of what you're doing on a daily basis of how you're helping your community. So thank you for being involved. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you all for joining us.
Kelly didn't even get to speak.